Hi tribe, Sheea here from filming from Austin. And it's been a while, as many of you know, since I've come on camera. So I felt inspired to do this and share because there's been a backlog of things that I need to be sharing. So I thought what I would present today, it's funny, I guess, in the process of launching my services to women now instead of just for men, because I've been working for men or with men and upgrading men for 17 years now, and that's been my focus. And I'm being called to reach out and work with women as well, because it's a very different animal working with women. They have a totally different message and way that I empower them, but it's time. And so that's official now, as well as something that many of you have been asking for a long time, which is doing online sessions, online Tantra sessions, where we literally act like we're going through a session, but we're doing it on camera, because many of you don't live in Austin or in Maui, wherever I happen to be residing at the time, and it allows you to be able to have a session and get all that empowerment and education and Tantra techniques, so I can walk you through them and have that experience. So I'm really happy about that, because I haven't been willing to do that before for my own reasons. And I was just like, I think it's time to be able to provide that so more people can access it. Of course, I do have a lot of people like fly to me and do like an intensive, couple sessions or a couple days or a day or whatever to get that kind of knowledge and experience, but not everyone is capable of doing that. So yay, I'd like to just announce that's available now, and you can reach out to me and find out my services. I'm at tantratransformation.com, and of course I haven't updated the site yet with all this new stuff, but it allows you to reach out to me, because I like to actually talk to people on the phone, in person, and in real time about setting up a session anyway. So what I wanted to share today is kind of some new information, because I'm very much have passion and heart for what's going on in our culture between men and women, and the genders, and dating, and our sexual relationships. And it makes me very sad what I'm witnessing. And so I'd like to speak to it a little bit, because I was really surprised that the Barbie movie was so sociologically potent, and they addressed a lot of these things. And I was really pleased with a lot of the messages that they shared. And I also am concerned about some of the things that weren't represented. And I apologize for the fact that it doesn't feel like they really had a strong masculine role model to kind of anchor to, which I would have liked, because they're out there, right? You might be one of them. And I think that men are needing to see, what does that look like, that role model, because it helps when you know what that looks like, so you can guide yourself there. And there's, not all movies are perfect, but I was pretty pleased with, or at least resonated with, a lot of the concepts, and I liked the way they were calling out a lot of things. And they did mention the patriarchy, and how the women, the Barbie world, I think they called it Barbie land. And this message is for men and women, because you kind of do need to know each other's side of the story, to have empathy for each other, because we've all been programmed through media and our society and culture, bombarded with these messages. And it's time to wake up, and in all areas of life, honestly, and to call these things out and be like, why are we doing this? This isn't the reality we want to create. And to wake up to it and just, which is what they depicted in the movie, which I thought was really cool, is I guess at one point, the patriarchy of the Kens in Barbie land took over, because they were feeling like the Barbies weren't really into them. And so they kind of put on this masculine, over masculinized, I guess, toxic masculinity vibe on. And then they showed how the Barbies kind of went along with it and got into it for a while, but it wasn't really meeting their needs, and they were just catering to the masculine, but it was, not very healthy and or balanced, which, has happened in our culture for sure. So, we are still in a more male dominated culture. It's just been around for a long time. And so, women, you're the ones that are needing to speak up and get empowered and like say, hey, this is what I need for this to work and to be sustainable for me and worth it for me. And so anyway, the Barbies had to get together and kind of figure out, how do we help our sisters break out of this programming to cater to these, in this case it was toxic masculinity, where they were kind of bending over backwards to do what the men wanted, but it wasn't what they wanted. And so a lot of women will relate to that, because like I'm aware of this like hookup culture that is going on, where that's very male oriented, and it's not for the women. It's not really benefiting us, because you can't really learn our bodies in one night, and it's a sacred thing that shouldn't be given in one night anyway, in my opinion, without having some fallout at least. And very few people I know can actually navigate those situations really well and have the emotional intelligence and to not have some kind of scarring or trauma or emotional processing that has to happen afterward, at least for the women. So it may work for the men and they may like it because it's an easy high or something like that, but it's at the expense of women, in my opinion. And I have a lot of girlfriends. I have my own experiences, and I have worked with women in different ways, but like I'm more like official now, because I'm just seeing how the women are needing to, get clear on this. And they had this part in the movie where this woman would share with the woman the reality and the truth, and that she would just wake up and be like, oh my gosh, yeah, what am I doing, So anyway, I have a lot of empathy for both the men and women in our culture right now, because I know a lot of the women are disenchanted and just not even wanting to date because they're not wanting to deal with the hookup stuff. They're not wanting men to just be looking at them as just some sex object that they use to get off on. And it's just it's funny, like the movie was depicting how Barbie just really wasn't into Ken, because they were depicting Ken, and a lot of the Kens in the Barbie world seemed kind of superficial. Like when they took over, they had some phrase of just wanting a part-time girlfriend on the side whenever they wanted, but no commitment, and that kind of thing. And it's like, that's so not what a woman wants. Really, honestly, I think women try to work with it as best we can under the circumstances, but it's like, we don't want to be treated that way. You're either going to love our sacredness and honor it and want to really relish in what that can create. And if you're just going to kind of want these cheap experiences or highs that you get from porn, that's not real life. It's an illusion. It's manufactured. Those women are being paid to do that, as they should be. because otherwise it's not usually worth it for her. Women want something deeper. We want something real. If we're going to bring someone into our bodies, we want it to count for something and mean something. And so I thought it was interesting how they were depicting Barbie as just not really being that into Ken, the main Ken, you know, because he was kind of, they depicted him, and this is often the case, and thank you, conscious men, for not being this, but he was acting like sort of like a high maintenance teenager, which is how a lot of men are that maybe haven't done their inner work. There wasn't a lot of depth there. He didn't seem to have confidence or even a lot of skills or anything to bring to the table, and you know, was just wanting her attention and wanting to be sexual with her, but yet not really providing much for her to work with, you know. And that, I think that's is a little bit of a mirror for sure of a lot of what's going on out there. I know that I run in circles of, you know, empowered women who are tantric, who have their own business, who are spiritual, who are making their own money and self-supporting, and on and on and on. And yet for us to find men who have all that to bring to the table too has been tricky, because a lot of times their spirituality is missing. Or I know when I was in Maui for 18 years, a lot of them just didn't have their financial act together, because there's a lot of, you know, hippies and surfers and whatnot. And, you know, it's not all about making money for sure. There's more to life. However, if a woman can't see herself in any kind of a really positive future with you, it's hard for her to take you seriously or to get on board. Because I know that's happened to me, and I'm like, oh gosh, you know, I don't want to be like, the whole point of partnering is that you're in it together and you're working on making a better life together. And if he doesn't really have anything to bring to the table, then there's no future there that she sees as that bright. And if I was the better money maker, then it's like, oh, it's on me. And it's like, I don't want to be the man in the relationship and doing all the providing, you know. So anyway, a lot of you men make a good living, and I know in Austin that's the case, where there's, you know, a lot of men have a lot of solid jobs here. The economy is so opposite and different because you have this whole tech community, and you know, having your act together financially is certainly a piece of what makes you attractive, but it does take more than that. It takes also, at least for conscious women, if you're interested in a conscious woman, then it does require that you have some kind of spiritual outlet, whether that's meditation or that you're somehow connected with, you know, yoga or whatever form of it, you know, nature. There's a lot of ways to connect with your spirituality, and spirituality does bring a depth to someone that if you don't have it, you can seem a little two-dimensional compared to someone who does have all that going for them. Because I know a lot of my conversations are around things spiritual. And if the man can't really engage enough in that world, then he does seem a little bit simple or basic to the woman who's dialed in there. And so there's a lot of esoteric practices, you know, from affirmations to manifesting skills to meditation to, you know, just being in tune with your guides, your angels, and talking to them on a regular basis. I talk to mine throughout the day, every day. We're always having a conversation where I'm asking for help or you know, getting downloads from them or aha moments, and it's just a back and forth constantly. If someone doesn't have that dialed in, then they're not really connected to source or their selves enough to have that kind of depth and guidance, I guess, in their lives. So I know for me, I have to have enough there for the guy. The guy has to have enough going on for me to work with. Otherwise, it just feels like I'm going to be his mother or mentor, you know, and it's just too much work to get him up to par to match me. And that's how a lot of women feel. That's the feedback I'm getting. And so, anyway, the Barbie movie was fascinating. I encourage you to go see it. It was really interesting on so many levels, and not perfect, but definitely calling out a lot of stuff to help us wake up to these gender roles, these issues we have between men and women who are just missing each other. Women are rigged so differently than you men, and so we're not a man in a woman's body. We have a very different way that we go about life, and that we see things, and that we go about sexuality. And unfortunately, one of the things I was exposed to this weekend were the statistics of women who have trauma sexually, and how it just makes us guarded and not sure if we can trust men or if they're in integrity, and this whole vetting process that we feel like we have to go through now these days, just because we're not really willing to take risks anymore and feel traumatized. And so, yeah, it makes me sad, because I know you men want to be our heroes. You want to, make us happy and make our lives better. And unfortunately, there's this programming somehow around where it feels like women are just doing too much, and the men aren't like matching us, like by providing or protecting, or some of those things that you're so beautiful at doing. And so there's been like an imbalance going on. And so, yeah, I guess I'm trying to call it out as best I can to make us aware of this, because I think men are wondering why it's not working. And so I'm the voice of women. And then I also, I do see mostly men clients, and I'm filling them in on how to have more success with women on multiple levels, because they're just kind of programmed through porn or whatever it is. It might even be programmed through religion or just ignorance or whatever, and just waking them up to what it's going to take to really draw in a quality woman that's worth having, and that's going to be sustainable. That there needs to be a little bit more, I don't know, it feels like men are having to kind of step up to the plate at this time. And some of you, I love meeting the ones that are already there and already know this, because you guys are more rare and it's so refreshing. And there's a lot of you, it feels like, in the mainstream that haven't really caught on to some of those things yet, and are wondering why it's not working. And if in a male mentality, a lot of times I see that if you're hot, you think that should be enough, or if you make a lot of money, you think that should be enough. And for a conscious, empowered woman, it's not, because we're those things too, and more. And we want someone who can truly match us in those areas, because you have to have, relationship skills and spirituality, and have some kind of balance between all these things that go into making a powerful relationship. Communication skills is a big one. If you are really lacking in your communication skills, it can fall apart really easily. So I know someone who's been trained in NVC and all that kind of stuff. If a lot of times that's the one thing that's missing, like he's just not communicating in a way that we can get past stuff and work through things, or he just disappears, or he ghosts, or whatever, because he's just doesn't have those skills, and it kind of ruins it. So anyway, I'd like to encourage us all. Women are going to need to be patient and empathetic, because I'd like to think that men are open ears around what is it going to be required to make this work, what's it going to take. I know women are shy about speaking up and stating what they need, and yet we're kind of at that point where it's needed, and it takes some balls to do that. And there's still a lot of fear, I think, of like men rejecting those needs, or not honoring what the woman needs in order for it to work well. I think you guys for a while have gotten used to just getting away with not maybe doing as much as she is, or not providing as much, or being all that well-rounded version of yourselves. And the women are starting to get tired of that being the case. There's not enough. Well, I'd like to affirm that I'd like to create enough men who are of that caliber so that all these empowered women can feel like they have their matches. So let's go in that direction.